to why you should not buy Bitcoin. I think the first thing that comes to my mind, why should you not buy Bitcoin? Number one, if you don't have the money to lose. I think if I had to take like a number one survey of like most retail investors, and I'm not talking about the big, accredited investors, guys have millions of dollars and they're investing all the time. I'm just talking about everybody else out there in the world, right? Probably 90% of the population. You can't invest the money that you can't afford to lose. So that's got to be number one. Really take a hard look at what money you're going to invest and come up with an investment strategy. Like, how long are you going to hold?
And the thing with that too, is there a number, like what to invest? Is there a certain drop dead number?
No.
I need to invest.
No.
X amount of dollars.
That's the thing with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies right now, is that we are in the early stages. So there's a lot of room for growth in a lot of these projects. So as far as a dollar amount, no, I would say just get started, right? And you everybody's different as far as how much. Like, it's not like, oh, well, if you don't put $10,000 in, you're wasting your time. No, I don't believe that's the case at all. I think you're buying yourself some education. So I think no matter what that dollar amount is, it could be $500, it could be $1,000, it could be $100. But at some point, you got to get in the game. And, you could have sat here, 10 years ago when Bitcoin was $100. You're like, oh, you could have thought the same thing. Like, how much is enough?
Right.
There's no right answer to that. It really comes down to your personal, what is your personal thesis of what you have to live without for the next 4 to 5 years. The old stock adage used to be, don't invest anything you're not willing to touch for a year. Me personally, I look at crypto a little bit longer term because we are so early in the game. I think you got to account for all the ups and downs and the turns in the technology and the government regulation. And man, the government's so far behind this whole thing. I mean, so they're not even a factor yet, and they will. Which is
crazy.
Yeah, and they will be, they will be eventually. But, right now they're really a non-factor as it become, as this technology is moving forward. So, we're so early. So, how much is what you can afford not to touch for 3 to 5 years? And that's the question that I think everybody should be asking, not, how much is enough, and just get started and start learning. If you really want to win this game, I think you have to be willing to put in time in educating yourself. I don't think there's no other way. I think just throwing your money at it like a dartboard, I think is a losing strategy long term. So some people may say, I don't want to learn all this stuff. This stuff's not for me. You might want to go find yourself a financial advisor that is hip to the crypto game and really understands it, and maybe follow their lead. Let them give you some sound advice in that manner. But I think if you're like anybody, I mean, most people want to be free. They want financial freedom. They want, a future, that looks good. I think this can give it to everybody, and they should be involved in it some way, somehow. So I think the step is just to take the step. Take the amount of money you can afford not to look at for the next 3 to 5 years and throw it in it. So if your case is, hey, I can only spare a couple $100 that I know I'm not going to need, then that's what it is. And that's where you start. And there's a lot of things down the road that you can, you can move and pivot to once you really get a good understanding of how all that works. So that's the first thing. First reason why you shouldn't buy Bitcoin is just because you don't have the money. If you're swimming in debt and you got a ton of debt, a bunch of money, and you're living paycheck to paycheck, things like that, you got to get that in order first. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. And I think a lot of people are getting stuck in that,
rut.
Chasing this oh man, I can make millions of dollars now. If I just take this, last $1,000 I have, and put it in here. I think it's a recipe for disaster. So, I think that's the first reason is if you don't have the money or you got a bunch of debt or whatnot, you need to square that away first. So I would not, invest in Bitcoin if that was the case. The other thing, there's the second reason. If you're looking at it like compared into like stocks, bonds, things of that nature, like you really don't have a basis for understanding what Bitcoin's worth. Nobody does. I mean, it's what did we say it was? $47,000? Why is it worth that?
No clue.
I don't fucking know either. I mean, nobody knows. Nobody really knows, right? You can take guesses, say, well, because of the supply, because of the demand,
right?
But there's no real world reason why it's worth what it's worth. It's worth what we believe it's worth. And supply and demand. So it's not like a company where you're buying a stock and it's based off the performance of that company, right? There's something tangible you can look at. If they do bad, your stock's going to suck. If they do good, stock's going to do good, right? It's an easy metric for you to look at. Bitcoin doesn't have that. So
there's no measuring.
There's no measuring metric to know for certain what it's worth. Reason number 2, not to buy Bitcoin. So if you're looking for some certainty as to knowing what that should be worth, you're not going to get it. So that would be reason number 2, not to buy Bitcoin. Security, number 3. Third reason why not to buy Bitcoin. Security, we just talked about it. Like you push that button, that money's gone, right? Those Bitcoins are gone. This just happened to a family member. I'm not going to say any names, but somebody sent him a message, right? He was trying to buy into some kind of crypto project, right? And they sent him a message basically stating that they needed to verify his account in order for him to purchase whatever he was trying to do, and that he needed to send them his passphrase. Remember that set of words I was telling you about that basically is your backup for your wallet?
Mm-hmm.
And they asked him for it, and he sent it to him, not knowing that was a bad thing and he shouldn't have done that. And guess what happened? They wiped him out. Yep, they wiped him out. And everybody's got to learn that, and I'm hoping that will be a catalyst maybe that we can keep somebody from that happening too. So I hope that when people listen out there, listen to, the fact that nobody will ever email you, direct message you, or anything asking for your private keys or your backup code.
Send your password.
No, ever.
It's
the same premise as somebody asking for your password.
Right.
Your username and your password for your bank account.
Right.
And, it's the same thing. It's just because
not going to happen.
they word it in a way that makes it seem legit. It's like your bank sending you an email.
They're fishing for information.
Stating that, hey, maybe they make it real compelling that, hey, this is really from the bank. I really got to send them this. But the bank will never, that the bank will never email you asking you for your password. So you got to think of it's the same thing with crypto. It's just that it's new and you're really unsure sometimes. And that was his case. He's still learning. So, same thing kind of happened to me, years ago. I didn't give away my passphrase, but my private key, access to my private key, and it wiped out my wallet. Luckily it didn't destroy me, but it could have if I wasn't, if I just was a little bit lucky that day. But the security is an issue. That would be one reason why I wouldn't, if I'm completely nervous about not willing to take the time. That's really more what it is. It isn't about being nervous. It's about being educated. So if you're not willing to take the time to learn, just like learning an app on your phone, it's no more complicated than that. Learning how to use a GPS for the first time, learning how to use that cell phone that you just got, It's a pain in the ass. You don't know how to do anything on it. But the more you play with it, the more you learn it, right? So it's the same thing. It's no more complicated than learning how to use a cell phone. There's certain things you just don't do. So security's number 3 reason why you wouldn't want to buy Bitcoin. There's no, we were talking about accredited and non-accredited. There's no protections. So, but this is a double-edged sword. So if I'm Microsoft, or if I'm a Bill Gates, or I'm a, let's take somebody probably more relevant to this. Let's take a Mark Cuban. Shout out to Mark Cuban. Not that he's watching our podcast, but he's a player in this space. He really is. He's probably one of the few billionaires that are really out there, that they're in this space. Let's just say, he has the exact same opportunities that you have. Let me say that again. Mark Cuban has the exact same opportunities in this space as you do, as Chris Osborne does, as anybody does. That's the difference with where we're at with this technology versus where we were at when the internet was being born and things of that nature, when that really wasn't the case. Today, that's the case, and that's a big reason why we're here and what we're doing. It's because you have the same opportunity as a multi-billionaire.
Right.
You really do. Now, I guarantee you he's doing something that most people aren't doing, is he's doing research. Like, he's learning. He's putting some of his money into it to learn it. And when he does, he's going to win, and he's going to kill this. He might be one of the first trillionaires. I mean, you may never know it.
Right.
But he probably will be, because he's a tech guy, followed him forever. And he's forward thinking when it comes to technology.
It's crazy that we have the same opportunities that he does.
Yeah. And it is. And man, if I had anything to say to anybody, is just let that sink in for a minute, because that doesn't exist in the traditional investment world. It just doesn't. That don't exist. Like, a billionaire has access to financial tools that most people will never even know exist, like private reserve accounts and offshore equities, things that vehicles that aren't privy to most people, even millionaires. But this game has changed that so drastically. We as a hundredaire or a thousandaire have the ability to invest in the same projects as Mark Cuban, the billionaire. We just have to educate ourselves. It's really what it comes down to. And it's the same thing he's doing now. And he's doing it in overload. And, he's going to win. So I want to see everybody do the same thing and just follow his lead. So, not following up, not willing to do the research, and not willing to educate yourself would be another reason not to buy Bitcoin. Plain and simple. If you're not willing to do it, then don't do it, because you're probably going to lose. The next reason.
Crazy thing, though, is if you're going to jump into this space, you need to have the knowledge. And that's the biggest reason I have not jumped into the space, because I don't have the knowledge.
So after these last 2 episodes, you should have that knowledge. You should really, you're going to know 100 times more than I knew when I really bought my first Bitcoin, when I knew what it was. Like, I'm not counting when I got some to get my cash out of a poker company. When I really bought my first Bitcoin, and I bought a whole Bitcoin, and I didn't know as much as you know right now. I didn't. There wasn't near as much resource available on the internet as what there is now. Like, there's 1,000 YouTube videos and thousands of Google documents and things you can find that will tell you everything you want to know. It's just taking that step, right? But that's really what it is. So you should have all the information right now. If I told you that I was 100% certain that Bitcoin's going to be worth $1 million in 15 years,
I'd buy it.
You'd buy it, right? So I'm not going to say that. I do believe it's going to be worth something close to that. I have no concrete proof of that being the case. I'm looking at history. I'm looking at what I see happening in the world. I see where our financial system is at currently. I see all these different factors. I see the belief system. I see corporate entities and hedge funds and things of that nature really putting a lot of money into it. I see all these things, and it's easy to conclude that it's going to be worth a lot more. Now, how much, I don't know. But I think it's a worthwhile investment, at least part of your portfolio, for sure. So, yeah, you have all the information, really, that you need, to be honest with you. But the next reason not to buy it, so I'm going to keep harping on all these reasons why you shouldn't buy Bitcoin, because they all matter. All those that we just mentioned matter. So the next thing would be regulation, like the government. Like so far, we've been
zero regulation.
We've been
right now, right?
in the wild, wild west. I mean, the regulations really from the maybe the taxation part of it, where it's considered an asset. So if it's not a currency. So if you buy it and you sell it, that's a tax event. You got capital gains tax to pay on that. So that's really the only regulation that's in place right now. There's no regulation that says you can buy anything you want to buy. You can sell anything you want to sell.
When did they start taxing it when you sell it?
Oh, when did that start?
Is that
It's
recent?
always been the case, but I think when they labeled it as an asset, I'd have to go back and look that up. I'm not sure exactly when that was. When they labeled it as
was it recent
an
or
asset.
has it been?
No, it's been
been a
about
while.
4 or 5 years,
Okay.
something like that, where they actually put a label on it. What is this? Is it a security? Is it a commodity? Is it an asset? What is it? So as far as tax purposes, they've labeled it as an asset. So that does make it really difficult. And I think they're going to have to go back and they're going to have to really revamp this whole thing. That's why I say they're so far behind, because the problem is in the space, you may have to buy Bitcoin to get something else. You know what I mean? So
Right.
there's a lot of projects that don't interact with U.S. dollars or the yen or the pound or the Deutschmark or whatever currency you're using. Maybe they only take Bitcoin. So now you got to buy Bitcoin, and then when you exchange that for whatever it is you're trying to get to, that's a tax event in itself.
Wow.
So you can see there's times when you may have to buy Bitcoin to buy Ethereum, to buy Litecoin, to buy this coin to get to the coin you really want to buy because it's part of the project. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So that's creating a lot of issues, obviously. So I think there's the uncertainty of what regulation is going to mean and what that's going to, how that's going to impact Bitcoin. If you believe regulation's going to kill it, then you don't want to buy Bitcoin. I don't think it's going to kill it. I think we're past that. I think there's going to be some kind of regulation. Knowing our government, they'll probably try to go overboard with it. But the technology is just moving at light speed, and our government moves at turtle speed. So it may be 20 years before they actually catch up. Now, they'll be maybe not that long, maybe 10 years. But between now and then, there's going to be all kinds of weird stuff that's going to happen. They may be way overstepped, and they may not do enough. I don't know. But that's an uncertain thing because we haven't got there yet. Another reason, though, why you could make a case for buying it, because we are so early in the game, they don't even have regulations for it yet.
Right.
But anyway, that's a reason not to buy it. Looking to get rich quick, because I do believe there's a lot of people out there that think that's the case.
Tons.
And
You see them on Facebook every day.
yeah, Oh
every day.
yeah, follow buy my master Bitcoin course and make millions. Yeah, it's not going to happen like that. And in fact, most people are going to lose when it comes to that. So, if that's your thing, I want to get rich tomorrow. Yeah, good luck with that. I mean, I'm not going to say there isn't some super geeks out there that can figure some stuff out in this space, because it's happening. But the average person, it's not. You're going to lose, and you're going to lose bad. So if that's what you're thinking, probably want to stick with the lottery. Probably have better success that way.